Okay, well, I think we have plenty of pizza, so if you guys want more, feel free to get up anytime while we're here. And it's 12:02, so we'll get started. You guys have a couple of different things at your tables. You have a college portfolio, so this is just for you guys to keep. It's a way to organize information, so they designed these for keeping track of your financial aid information. We thought they were just neat little ways for you guys to keep track of your stuff. So it has loan information and FAFSA. So really, if you need a place to organize your FAFSA documents, scholarship documents, this might be useful for you guys. So we wanted to give you those. And then you have a little managing money guide that each of you guys has. I did pass out a little postcard to each of you guys because this workshop is part of a grant that we got to do what we call the Cash Course Challenge. So this is why you guys are getting food this time. We can buy food with this money. So this is part of it. We have 2 more of these workshops that we're going to be doing. I didn't check the list before I came over today, but I think we still have spots on both of them. We're limited to 15. So if you guys want to come to another one, we'll be doing a couple more on different finance topics. And then this tells you about the challenge in case you haven't caught this information yet. So you also have the opportunity to participate in activities on the Cash Course website. And then at the end of our challenge, we'll be drawing names for a couple of $100 gift cards to the bookstore. So that's a nice little piece of money that you guys could use at the bookstore. So we have what we call Money Mondays and Finance Fridays. So on Money Mondays, we post an activity on the Cash Course website. If any of you guys did the challenge last semester, that's kind of the same thing we did last semester. So you can just go online. This kind of tells you how to go on there and set up the steps and access it. So if you complete the Money Monday activities, then your name goes in the drawing. And then on Fridays, we're actually going to be set up. We're going to have a table set up in the Lion's Den downstairs, and anybody on campus will be able to participate there. But we'll again have activities that we're doing. Our sign-in sheets down there. So if you're free between 12 and 1 for the next 8 Fridays, well, I think 7. I think there's one where we won't be here. You can stop by our table, do our little activity there, and your name will go in the prize drawing again. So that's kind of what we're doing with our Cash Course Challenge this semester, so feel free to participate in any of that you guys want to. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about money management, and this isn't going to be anything real in-depth, but it's just some basic information about managing your money, and it's geared towards college students. So we'll talk a little bit about how to budget, because it may be something that you guys haven't done a lot of before and you need like some guidelines for getting started with that sort of thing. We'll talk about looking at needs versus wants and how you guys can help figure out ways to maybe be a little bit smarter with your money and buying the things that you need instead of the things that you want. We'll talk a little bit about credit card debt and managing student loans. So there's kind of a little bit of all kinds of different information thrown in today. You guys have a copy of the PowerPoint, so you'll have all this that you can take with you. And then, of course, if you want any of it electronically, I can send it to you too. And a couple of other little worksheets that we'll talk about. So we'll just jump right in. Really, what we're hoping that you guys will be able to do after this workshop is make a plan for reaching your goals. We'll talk a little bit about what your financial goals are so you guys can start thinking about that if you haven't done that before. How to maximize your financial aid and manage it wisely. Cutting expenses, building good credit, and then we're also going to talk about savings and how you can start making savings a habit. Sometimes that seems kind of intimidating, especially when you're in college and you're living on a college student salary. Savings can seem almost impossible, but there are some small things that you can do to start working towards being able to save. So, one of the questions is why even do this? Some of you may feel like, oh, I don't even need to manage my money, or why should I? But really, the earlier you start doing this, the better. And we've got some quotes up here that we won't spend a lot of time on, but the first one is, he who fails to plan plans to fail. So, you guys are here and you're planning for your careers. You're here, you're planning for the classes you're going to take. So it's smart to plan your financial goals as well. So, maybe for you as a college student, that's just, how do I get through college with the least amount of loan debt? Or maybe you're interested in studying abroad. Well, maybe your goal will be, I need to save up some money to be able to do that. So It's really smart to go ahead and start thinking about it now, and just know that there are small steps you can take even as a college student if your income is limited right now to get to where you want to be. Okay, so when it comes to financial planning, there are really 3 steps that we'll talk about. The first is defining your financial goals. So it's kind of hard to get where you want to be financially if you haven't thought about where it is you want to go. So really the first part is sitting down and thinking about, okay, what are my goals financially? Again, like we talked about, maybe it's getting out of school with a minimal amount of debt, or going on a study abroad trip, or maybe it's to start saving for retirement. So the first step is defining those goals for yourself, and then making a plan to reach those goals. So looking at where you want to go, where you're at right now, and then thinking about the steps that you can take to get there. And they can be small steps that you can take over time to get where you want to go. And then taking action until your goals become reality. And that's, sometimes the hardest part of this is you might get your goal in your head and get a plan down on paper, but when it comes to taking the steps, that's usually where the changing your habits comes in. So if it's something that you're not used to, that can be the hard part, but hopefully we'll talk today about some small steps that you guys can take to start getting there. So one thing that you guys have is a sheet that looks like this, and it's a savings goal worksheet. So I want you guys all to take just a minute, and there's 3 sections on here: short term, medium term, and long term. And there's no set rule for what short term is. Short term for you may be a month, for somebody else it may be 6 months. But just so you guys can have something in your head as we're talking about finances today, I want you guys to take a minute and think about either pick a time frame, so pick short term, medium, or long term, and think about a financial goal that you guys have for yourself, and then fill out the information on it. So write down your goal, think about when you'd like to achieve that by, what you think it will cost you to get there, and then think about how much you would need to save every month to get there. So take a minute and just write those things down. You guys don't have to share these, this is just for you to keep, so you guys can write down anything that you want on there. Okay, so it looks like most of you guys have something written down. If not, keep thinking and filling out that sheet as we move on. Something else that you guys have in your little packet, and this is a little bit more extensive, so we won't work on this today, but I wanted you guys to have it, is a monthly budget. So if you guys are just at the point where you're starting to learn about budgeting and you haven't sat down and used something like this before, this is a tool that you might find useful. So as we talk about budgeting today, we're going to talk about sticking to your budget and planning your budget. So this is a sheet that you can use to look at your monthly expenses, and it's really helpful to get that down on paper. And one thing that I always suggest to students is, if you're just getting started with budgeting and you've never sat down and done a written out budget before, one of the nice things to do, or one of the good starting place, is for a month before you actually set a budget for yourself, keep track of these things and just see. Go through a month as you normally do, but write down all of your expenses, and that will give you a good idea of where you are each month. And then you can use that to look at, okay, where can I make changes? What's something that I can spend less on to be able to work towards my savings goals? Or, maybe there's something that you struggle with every month that you can, rearrange to make sure the money that needs to go there is going there. So this sheet can be helpful for that. I also have this in electronic format, and you can actually, it's in a PDF, but you can actually type into it. So if any of you guys want that, what I may do is just for all of you that are here, I'll email that stuff out. If you want it, you'll have it. If not, you can just delete it. But it's kind of a nice form if you prefer to do it on the computer as opposed to writing it out. So I will send that to you. So we won't spend a ton of time going through this today because it is time consuming. But I wanted you guys to have that sheet just as something that you can use, a tool that you might use. Also, everything that we're talking about today is through the Cash Course website, so these documents are actually all located on there. So you guys might want to go check that out, because they have this, but they also have like a budgeting wizard where you can do it all online and it keeps track of it for you, and you can go in every month. So there's some good tools on there if this is something you guys are wanting to try and start doing. Okay, so we've talked just a little bit about how to get started with financial planning, but like I said, we're going to talk about some things today specifically related to students who are in college and what you can do budgeting-wise for those. So the first one that we're going to talk about is maximizing financial aid. So I'm assuming that most of you guys are using financial aid in one form or another, whether you've got a Pell Grant or some of you may have loans, so if you guys have scholarships. But there's a couple things, pointers that we want to make sure you guys are aware of when we talk about financial aid, because it's a great tool, and I like to tell students to think of student loans. If you are in a position where you're having to use student loans, to think of that as a way that you're investing in yourself. It's a good use of money, but you also have to be aware that it is debt, and it is something to be cautious with. So one thing you want to do is read the fine print. I know nobody likes to do this. I am bad at doing this, but when you sign to take a student loan, you need to be aware of what you're signing on to. So just make sure that you're reading that fine print, that you know whether you're choosing a subsidized or unsubsidized loan. One you start paying interest on immediately, one you don't have to pay interest on until later. That's the you want the subsidized if you can. Just remember that. That's the better of the two. But there's a lot of information to know. So just make sure you're checking out the fine print. Ask questions if you have questions. You can come to our office and ask them. If we don't know, we'll get in touch with the financial aid office. You can also go to the financial aid office and visit with advisors there. They know this stuff inside and out. Keep looking for aid dollars. This is something we're really trying to push a little bit more with you guys this semester. So you may have seen our scholarship board, and we're trying to encourage you guys to look for some options more, because we want to make sure you guys are getting through your college experience with as little debt as possible. So keep looking for aid dollars. One thing in March, what you guys will all want to do, so make a note of this, and we'll send out reminders, is you want to apply for the institutional aid, the foundation scholarships. It's an online application. It's not a long application, and if you fill it out, I believe the deadline is, it's either the beginning of March or the end of March, but we'll send out notices. You fill out one application, and they consider you for every foundational scholarship that you might be eligible for here. So basically, there are people who donate money to Missouri Southern for specific scholarships. So somebody who's an accountant might donate money and say, I want this scholarship to go to an accounting major. They have all kinds of scholarships like that. There's one application for all of them, so make sure you guys do that. Also, be looking for scholarships any way you can. The Fast Web Scholar website is a good one. They will email you kind of a lot, but it is a good place to search for scholarships. You put in all your background information, they match you to scholarships. We have a scholarship book, I'm not kidding, that's this thick in our office. So you're always welcome to come by and look through that, or make an appointment and sit down with us to talk about, okay, what are some maybe some things you've done in the past, your family characteristics, your background, race, ethnicity, major, that you guys have that might qualify you for a scholarship, because there's lots of things out there. So always keep looking. At the same time, you need to watch out for scholarship scams. So the biggest thing I would tell you here is do not ever pay to submit a scholarship application. If you come across one that you have to pay for, it's probably a scam. So don't do it. If you're ever unsure, come by. We'll help you guys check it out. So just be cautious. Use private loans as a last resort. So some of you may not even know of the availability of private loans, but through the FAFSA, your financial aid application, you are offered student loans. But there are companies out there outside of the FAFSA that offer private loans to pay for school. I would tell you to absolutely use that as a last resort. The reason being is you're often going to pay fees on top of, you pay the money back plus interest. Oftentimes there are fees where there aren't with your FAFSA student aid. A lot of times the interest rates are going to be higher, and the terms for paying that money back usually are not as generous as what they are through the FAFSA. So just be cautious of that. Understand your student loan obligations. So one thing you need to know is that student loan debt it's still debt. It's not really any better than, say, having credit card debt, because it's still money that you pay back. It still affects your credit score. You still will go into default if you don't pay that back, meaning that at some point, if you have student loans and you're not paying on them, they could start garnishing your wages. So they could just start taking that money from you. So you just want to be aware that you do have an obligation to pay that money back. Submit a new FAFSA every year. I think you guys probably know this. Again, we will always help you guys with that process if you need it. And then talk to a financial aid officer. This is really important because sometimes your situation changes. Sometimes you get married or have a baby, or something in your family life changes, which may change your eligibility on the FAFSA. And you guys may not know this, but you can actually go and make changes to that mid-year. You would have to just go visit with your financial aid officer, let them know, okay, I have this situation that has changed since I filled out my FAFSA, and then they'll let you know if your aid money can be adjusted. So I don't know all the ins and outs of that, all the rules of how they make that determination, but just know that if you have a situation like that and something financially or family-wise changes for you, let them know, because they can sometimes make adjustments. Okay, so we're going to switch gears just a little bit and talk about things in college that sometimes can throw us off as far as when it comes to budgeting. Okay, so just some tips about what you can do as a college student. Let me pop these up here real quick. Okay, so one of the things that it talks about that's important is using your meal plan. So I don't know how many, do I have anybody that's on campus, living on campus? Just one, two, a couple. Okay, so if you're living on campus and you have a meal plan, using that as much as possible. I know sometimes the cafeteria food gets really old and you want something different, but that is money that you've already paid towards eating. So using that as much as you can. And avoiding, eating out or buying snacks from vending machines, because those seem like small amounts, but what you may find if you start tracking your expenses for a month, then you may find that you're spending a lot of money there. And so this goes also for those of you not living on campus, just paying attention to how much money you spend eating out. I can tell you that a couple years ago, my husband and I weren't doing a very good job of budgeting, and so we kept track for a month of what we spent, and like we almost fell out of the chair when we added up what we spent on restaurants, because it does add up quickly. So just be cautious of that. Also, if you're living with roommates, it's a good idea to have a conversation with them about money. And this can be awkward and it can feel confrontational, but if you're splitting expenses, you want to make sure you guys are on the same page. So talking about who's responsible for what, how are you going to split up the bills, and just being aware of having a plan with your roommates for how you're going to address financial issues. And then I would also caution you against loaning money to people, because that can get sticky sometimes. I mean, you may be in a situation where you feel comfortable doing that, but just be cautious of it. And then, you need to expect, it talked about peer pressure. So, sometimes you guys are probably going to find yourself in this situation where a classmate or somebody that you're friends with, maybe even, outside of your college experience here, asks you to go do something. And either maybe you don't have enough money to do it, or, you've got your savings goal and that's what you want to put your money towards. So sometimes there's peer pressure, to go do things that are going to cost you money. And just being aware, that may happen to you, and having a plan for if it does. So some of the ideas that you guys can use possibly in that situation is to, first of all, think of other alternatives. So maybe you're maybe you have a friend who wants you to go out to the movies, and you know if you do that, you're gonna pay whatever $9 for your movie ticket, buy popcorn, and by the end of it, it's gonna cost you $30 or $40. Offering that an option for something on campus where we have some pretty good activities here on campus, and as students, you guys can bring guests to those. So offering different alternatives. If you have a friend or somebody who wants you to go out and do something that's going to spend money, coming up with some creative ideas that are not as expensive but still give you the opportunity to go out and do something fun with them. Keeping your goals, so you guys have started on your little goal sheet today thinking about a goal that you have. One thing that you can do is keep that somewhere where you see it all the time. So maybe you stick it on your bathroom mirror or on the dashboard of your car, or somewhere that you see it regularly and it reminds you, that's right, I'm working because I have this goal and I want to make sure and I meet it. It just keeps it in your mind so that when those things do pop up, when you think, oh, I'm going to go get a soda, maybe you're a little more likely to say, you know what, I'm just going to get a drink out of the water fountain and say, put that $1.50 towards my whatever, X, Y, Z, whatever your goal is. And then there's, when it comes to friends and peer pressure, one way to attack it is to just be honest. Tell your friends, you know what, I want to go on a study abroad trip next semester and it's going to cost me X amount of money, so I'm saving my money and I just can't do this activity with you. I think people respect that when you're able to tell them that. And you may still have some friends that pressure you in one way or another if you do tell them that, but I think most people you'll find are pretty understanding and accepting of that. And then, that may make them more open to options like free activities on campus or, renting a movie instead of going out and seeing a movie. And then just reminding yourself, okay, when you reach that goal that you guys wrote down, when you're able to get there and do whatever it is that you want to do with that money, how good that will feel. Can kind of keep you motivated to keeping your spending down. Okay. I think this slide is on. Okay, so we're going to do another little activity. You guys have, in your stack, you have a blank sheet of paper. So pull that blank sheet of paper out. And here's what you're going to do with that. Does everybody has a pen, I think, right? I have some extras if you do. Okay, so you need to take a couple of minutes and write down 11 items that you have purchased in the past month. So just, it can be whatever. It can be a soda, it can be a car. Just 11 things that you bought in the past month, whatever they are. Just the first things that come to your mind that you spent money on. And again, you're not going to have to share this with anybody, so don't feel pressure about it. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do with your list is look at that list of 11 things and cross off 3 items that you couldn't live without. Okay, so now what you're going to do next is imagine that everything that's left on your list, so there should be 8 things left on your list, has either been lost or eaten or broken or stolen. You don't have it anymore. So now cross off 5 items. If that was the case and you lost all of them and you had to replace all of them, cross off 5 items that you would not replace if you had to choose. Cross off the 5 that you said, okay, nope, if I had to replace them all, I would not replace that one. Okay, did everybody cross their 5 off? Okay, so now from that list of 11 things, you're down to less than half, to just 3 of them that you have left on your list. So as you guys look at that list, look at the things that you crossed off, and you ask yourself, okay, were those things I really needed? What comes to your mind? Were they things you really needed? All of them? Some of them maybe were? Anybody that came up with some things that maybe you didn't need? Anybody in here know how to talk? I'm certain that I would have come up with some things because it's so easy to spend on animals. But you know, the point of this exercise is that it's really easy to talk ourselves into buying things that maybe we don't necessarily need, and if we were really in a crunch money-wise, that we wouldn't be able to buy. But doing this just kind of makes you guys aware of, okay, of the last 11 things that I got, how many of them did I really, really need? You know, just to give you guys an awareness to start you thinking about how and where you're spending your money. So maybe you see some things on that list that you crossed off that are things that you spend money on regularly that, you know, if you think about it, it's not really something you need. It's really more of a want. So, you know, we've got this little graphic up here, stuff I want, stuff I need, and then there's the stuff I have money for. And that's kind of the 3 basics. You know, we start out with the 11. You guys spent money on 11 things, so obviously those are things that you wanted. And then you drop your list down to stuff that you needed. Sometimes even within that stuff that I need, we have to pick and choose what we're going to spend our money on this month or next month. So again, we use that little exercise to create some awareness for you guys. So did anybody, and you don't have to tell us what it is, but you guys can just raise your hand. Do any of you see something on that list that makes you think, you know what, I can probably stop spending money on that regularly and do myself some good? Anybody have anything like that? Cool. I'm sure that I would too, without a doubt, if I sat down and thought about the last 11 things I spent money on. So just a way to kind of get you guys thinking about that. Okay, so some more ways to cut or to stretch your dollars. Cut back on costly habits. So maybe there's something you guys see in there. You know, maybe you regularly stop and get a coffee or a soda that you can do less often or just cut out completely. So think about some things that you regularly spend money on that maybe you could cut out of your budget or cut out of your lifestyle. Shopping thrift stores and garage sales. We have a lot of options in this area for used items. I mean, we've got Goodwill and DAV store. There's several clothing stores in the area that are resale shops, and a lot of them actually have really nice stuff. I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of dedicating the time to going out and looking through that. I'll never forget, a couple of years ago, I was at a training in Kansas City, and it was about 4 days long, and there was this woman who was in the same group as I was. I didn't interact with her a whole lot, but I noticed from the very first day how nicely she was dressed. I mean, every day she showed up and I thought, wow, she looks really nice. I just really, appreciated the way that she dressed. And then towards the end, I think it was actually one of our last days, I was in a small group with her, and we were just having a informal conversation, and somebody complimented her on her outfit. And she told us that she buys everything she wears secondhand. And I was really impressed by that. And I have not ever really been good about spending the time to go out and look. Occasionally I'll pop into like a resale shop or whatever, but that just really kind of made me think, like, you can dress nicely on a budget. So consider looking at those kinds of places. Avoiding money traps. So just a few things up here that I would really caution you guys against. Anything rent to own. If you look at over the long term, sometimes they make it sound really good. You only pay X amount of dollars a week for this item, which when you look at just that small weekly amount doesn't seem like very much. But when you look at over the long term how much you'll end up paying for that item, it's exponentially higher than what you would pay for it out of pocket. So be cautious of rent to own. Pawn shops, really, you're not ever going to find much of a good deal there. And check cashing outlets. So, the places that cash your checks or do the payday loans, those are horrible financial traps. And I would caution anybody against using any of those. Because they can really get you, their whole point is to get you stuck to where you keep coming back to them and coming back to them and coming back to them. And I have known more than one person who has gotten in a mountain of debt because they owed so much money to these places. They're really, I have a very strong opinion about them. So I would just tell you guys, stay away at all costs. Make it stick with a shopping list, clip coupons. If I go into the grocery store without a list, I'm in trouble because I just start grabbing stuff. So, think about, when you're going to go grocery shopping, okay, what am I going to eat for the next week or 3 days, whatever that time period is, and stick to your list. Clipping coupons can be time consuming, but it can also be worthwhile. So if you've got the time to do that, I would definitely encourage you to. Using public transportation, there are options for that here in Joplin. We have the trolley, so I've known people who don't. I know several of our students that use the trolley to get around, and so maybe you're somebody who drives, but if the trolley is convenient for you, it might save you money. Limit downloads. So, if you are one that spends a lot of money downloading music or movies or whatnot, that can add up quickly. It doesn't seem like a lot when you spend $1.50 to download a song, but this may be an area where if you look over a month at what you spend, could be an area where you're spending more than you think. Again, we've talked about this, but free on-campus events are always a good way. And really over the last year or two, our Campus Activities Board has stepped up their offerings, and they're offering a lot more and some really good activities. So I encourage all of you guys to go to that. So when it comes to your plan, as far as what you guys have written down as your goals, there's a couple of steps or in budgeting, the budgeting portion of it. The first thing that you have to do is identify your income. So you need to look and see, okay, what money do I have coming in each month, whether that's from a job or if you have parents who are sending you some money to help support you every month or whatever, wherever your income is coming from, knowing that number. And that may vary for some of you from month to month, but having an idea of, okay, what is my income? What do I have every month to spend? Then putting together a list of your expenses. So rent, tuition, whatever it is that you spend your money on, the things that you have to pay for each month, coming up with that list. Comparing your income and expenses and seeing where you're at. So hopefully you're going to be in a position where your income is covering your expenses or above. If you're in a situation where it's not, then you need to be looking as carefully as you can as, okay, what are some things I can cut? Where are some ways that I can spend less money than what I'm spending? And then setting priorities and making changes. And so, sometimes you have to make a tough decision between different things that are expenses. But usually for most people, there's a way to find some expenses that you can cut. So it's just looking and identifying those things. Okay, we're going to switch gears just a little bit and talk about credit. Because credit is a great tool, but it also can be very, very dangerous. So we want to make sure that you guys are aware I didn't really know very much about credit when I was in college. I knew a little bit, I kind of knew the basics, but definitely some things you want to be aware of. The first is just paying your basic expenses and utilities on time. So hopefully you don't get in a situation where you're having to use credit cards to pay for those things. So that's, again, where your monthly budget comes in. Making monthly loan payments on time. So doing those things, paying your bills on time, paying any loans that you have on time, those are all going to do good things to build your credit. Pay your loans before you spend money on other things. So if you have debt out there of any sort, and your student loan debt is a little bit different because you aren't expected to pay that back until after college, although you can. You guys might decide, if you've come up with a little bit of extra money each month, so a good thing to do might be to throw that money towards your loan debt so you don't have as much when you get out. But when you're budgeting, if you do have loans, car loans, student loans, whatever they may be, making those payments before you spend on other extra things like entertainment, eating out, that sort of thing. Apply only for the credit that you need. So the really negative thing about credit card companies is they may start you off with a small amount, but if you use that card and you pay it off, or really a lot of times even if you carry a balance, they will increase your limit and increase it and increase it to a lot of times just a really, really high number that if you were to spend that would really put you in a tough financial situation. So you want to just make sure that you're not applying for a bunch of credit cards that you don't need, or really any type of loan that you don't need. And then thinking about what you can afford to pay back. So do you really need a credit card with a $5,000 limit? Because if you were to charge $5,000, would you be able to pay that back? So just thinking those things through if you're in a position where you're looking for and are applying for credit. And then not bouncing checks or overdrawing your account. This sometimes happens. I mean, I've had situations where I wasn't paying enough attention to my checkbook and I bounced a check. But that's bad in a way. That's bad in several ways. First of all, you're going to get charged fees for doing that. Second of all, it can actually affect your credit, because when you apply for credit, they're going to check with your banking institutions. If it shows up that you bounce checks all the time, that's going to be negative on your credit. So when you guys are looking at something like buying a house and you need